This is the Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. This is the Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. Senate Committee Room, B 306. Did you know live Senate video is now available at youtube.com/@Senate of Virginia. Senate Committee Room, B 306. This is the Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. This is the Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. Senate Committee Room, B306. Did you know live Senate video is now available at youtube.com/@Senate of Virginia? Senate Committee Room, B306.
We are still down a number of members.
Hey, Luther. Welcome to transportation.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
How are you doing?
I'm filling in for Jennifer today. She's sick.
Okay.
I used to chair this committee.
There are hot mics.
Good afternoon. With folks, could we come to order? I will be filling in today for Senator Boysko, who is ill. I'm Senator Dave Marsden. I chaired this committee a few years back, and so it's my return here. Let's open the roll and. What's that? Okay.
Mr. Chair, you have a quorum?
Thank you so much. We have a quorum. We're ready to go. Let's deal with some preliminary matters. I've got some notes here that at the request of Senator Craig, her Senate Bill 1086, she's asked to strike the bill. Could I have a motion?
So moved.
Second. We have a motion and a second to strike Senate Bill 1086. Senator Craig, could you open the roll, please?
Ayes 12, no zero.
Ayes 12, no zero. That bill is stricken. We have two re-referrals to courts. First, could I have a motion to re-refer Senator Evans 1416 to the Courts Committee?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Could you open the roll, please?
Ayes 12, no zero.
Ayes 12, no zero. That bill is referred to courts, re-referred to courts. We also have a re-referral of Senator Diggs' 1411 to courts. Can I have a motion on that, please?
So moved.
Second. We have a motion and a second to move that bill to courts. Could you open the roll, please?
Senator Suderline for Senator Cyphers.
He's got two proxies.
Ayes 9, no zero.
Ayes 9, no zero. The referral is made to courts. We're losing members as we go here. Okay, there we go. We got folks back. Let's see. I think that deals with all of the. We have. Excuse me. We have two bills that we'd like to go by for the day, and those are Senate Bill 1167 and 1348. Do we need a motion on that? Okay, we'll, unless there's any objections, Senate Bill 1167 and 1348 are by for the day. And we have one other matter that, at the request of the patron, we would, on Senator Srinivasan's bill, the number on that is, what is it? On 1463, could I have a motion to PBI that bill with a letter to VDOT?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second to PBI that bill and send a letter to VDOT that Senator Srinivasan, if you could author that letter, I'm sure Senator Boysko would be glad to sign it.
The letter would be to Senate Finance.
Oh, to Senate Finance. Excuse me. Do we need to have a new motion? Okay. Can we change that to to PBI the bill with a letter to Senate Finance? Should open the roll. Could you open the roll, please?
That was one of my favorite bills. I was hoping it was going to include my district.
Ayes 12, no zero.
Ayes 12, no zero. The bill is PBI'd with a letter to Finance, and Senator Srinivasan will author that letter and get that to Senator Boysko. All right, first up, we have Senator Surville. Senator Surville, you have two bills.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let me get this out of the way. So let's do 776 first.
Senate Bill 776 is before us. Let's hear it.
Yeah, so 776 is a little piece of home cooking. It affects about 20 miles of roadway in the entire Commonwealth. The short version is the United States Park Police has not been doing a whole lot of traffic enforcement on the George Washington Memorial Parkway, which is a segment of road that runs from George Washington's house, Mount Vernon, up to the city of Alexandria. Then it picks up again from the city of Alexandria up to the Beltway in McLean. And I would just say for about the last 4 or 5 years, there's been pretty much zero traffic enforcement in the southern part of it, down where my district is. I've been getting a lot of constituent complaints about people drag racing out there, people doing over 80 miles an hour on a 45-mile-an-hour road, which is really a park, by the way. It's a national park, but it's kind of turned into a commuter byway. But the speeds are just totally out of control. We have about one accident a week at certain intersections. And so what the bill does is it basically authorizes the Fairfax County Police or the Virginia State Police to conduct traffic enforcement on the road. And it also authorizes either one of them to work with the National Park Service to place speed cameras on the road if the National Park Service will agree to that. The National Park Service is open to the idea, but they won't put them up themselves because the way federal law works, any revenues from the speed cameras would go to the federal treasury and not to the park. And so they basically, it would be a pure cost to them and they can't afford it. So, but the reason that the code section is necessary is because of it's a long story, but I can't tell you how many hours I spent with the Virginia State Police Council and Mr. Qualiato before he left DLS, writing this thing and researching the land title and all this of the property when it was given in 1926. But in any event, we had to change Virginia law to authorize the state police and state level police to go in and do traffic enforcement because they have to enforce the Code of Federal Regulations and not state traffic violations. And we want them to do that so they can go to state court instead of federal court, so we don't take them off the road an extra day. So, anyways, that's the way. You have no idea how much time I spent getting this thing written, how many people had to vet it and look at it to get it to where it is. But it only affects traffic enforcement on literally about 20 miles of roadway in Fairfax County, and that's what the bill does. It basically just allows local police, state police to enforce traffic law and for them to put up speed cameras if the Park Service will agree.
Senator Surville, did the federal government, the Park Police, or the Secretary of Transportation's office, or anything have any objections to that being done, or was there any legal impediment that they put up?
Congressman Byers' office told me that they have reached out to the Park Police and the Park Service about it, and they got no feedback about it. They said that the Park Service is open to the idea of speed cameras. The Park Police don't really, I think, care whether the county police are out there. The county police are actually on the road all the time right now. They just can't write any tickets. They can't stop people and write tickets because they're not allowed to, but they actually use it to move around, but they're just not allowed to write tickets out there. And they are allowed to come in and sort of help, like if there's an accident or something, stand around and put up flares and stuff. They just can't write tickets. Congressman Byers' office shopped it to them, and we got no negative response.
Thank you so much. Do we have any questions from members of the committee?
There's also a technical amendment, I'm sorry.
Oh, excuse me.
A comma or something, Mr.
Nikhil,
Edwards says.
could you report the amendment?
The technical amendment is on line 57, introduced after the word pursuant, and it just inserts the word to.
Okay. We have a movement. Have a second on the amendment? Okay. The bill as amended is before us. All in favor say aye. Aye. Okay. Members of the committee, any questions for Senator Surville? Senator Rome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As a question for the patron, would the patron agree that pretty much the distance of the road that we're talking about here is pretty much from the spur at 495 pretty much, if we go the entire length, close to Mount Vernon by the time it's done? Or is this going more closer to National Airport?
If you want to get technical, it starts around the Beltway up north, and then there's over LBJ Island, or there's an island that's actually in D.C. that it goes over. So it leaves Virginia, goes into D.C., it comes back into Virginia, and then it ends at the northern end of Old Town. So it goes past the airport, northern end of Old Town, and then it picks up again south of Old Town to Mount Vernon. The part in Old Town is not part of the park, though.
Okay, follow-up question.
Senator Rowland.
Thank you. So would the senator agree that the northern part of this, pretty much from the time that you were to get on from like 66 all the way to 495 is under a constant state of construction, like all the time, and that it's probably, I would argue, the most dangerous part of a major highway in Northern Virginia?
Yeah, right now it is, and I think actually the other day when it snowed, they just shut it down instead of even trying to let cars be on it because of what a mess it is because of the construction. They just shut it down. Didn't even try to plow it or anything for cars.
Thank you.
Other questions from the committee? Senator Diggs.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Speaking to the bill, we had the same problem down in York, Williamsburg, and James City County on the Colonial Parkway. The property was required at different times with different kinds of proprietary, exclusive, concurrent jurisdictions, and it took us years and years to solve this. This is a very good way of solving that problem, and it works very, very well for us down there. And this is a similar, if not exact same situation.
Mr. Chairman. Thanks, and I learned about that as part of this, and also the BW, the Blue Ridge Parkway had similar issues as well.
Thank you. Any other questions from the committee? We have Senator Suderline.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, and this will bring speed cameras to the national park?
It's possible.
Well, it looks pretty clear that's one of the aims of the legislation.
Mr. Chairman, what I'd say is it's possible. They would have to be in agreement with the Park Service, either between the state police and the county police and the Park Service. But they can't do it until there's authority, and there's details that have to be worked out, like cost and stringing. I mean, you understand this is a national park, and things have to be done pursuant to certain standards. It's also the first parkway in America. It was built in 1933. It's on the National Historic Register, and so anything you do to the road has to meet certain historic precedents. And you can't even put a stoplight up on this road. It's not, the National Historic Preservation Act prohibits it, and so there's a lot of details that would have to be worked out if they were to pursue that. And so the answer is this authorizes it, and it might happen, but doesn't mean it definitely will happen.
Other questions from the committee? All right, well, could we hear from anyone in the audience who is in favor of the bill? Is there anyone online in favor of the bill?
I could have gotten 20 constituents to come and yell at you guys today about it. But
is there anyone here if you're a constituent here in favor of the bill?
No, they're not here.
They're not here, okay. It is, is there anyone here to speak in opposition to the bill? Anyone online? All right. Well, Senator Serville, anything else you want to say before we ask for a motion?
No, I just hope this will
Okay.
prevent some
Do we have a
accidents.
motion on the bill? We have a motion and a second to report the bill. Could you open the rolls, please?
Ayes 10, noes 4.
Ayes 10, noes 4. The bill reports. Senator Serville, I believe you have another bill for us.
One more, which is Senate Bill 1007. There's a substitute on that.
Yes. Have you passed out the substitute?
It's online, I think, but
It's online? Okay, it's online. Do we have a motion on substitute? We have a motion, and do we have a second? Second on the substitute? Okay, we have a motion and a second on the substitute. All in favor, say aye. Aye. The substitute is before us. Senator Serville, tell us about the substitute and the bill.
thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is like the fifth or sixth iteration in a long saga of trying to get bike and pedestrian projects funded in Northern Virginia. a project of which Senator Rome has been on a similar quest. So I represent a part of Fairfax County that was built out largely before 1970, when sidewalks and curb and gutter and all that kind of stuff was common. And so, all the roads in my area don't have any pedestrian infrastructure, and so it's extraordinarily unsafe, even in the suburban neighborhoods, to get around because there's nowhere to walk. And so for years, we've had people saying we need more sidewalks, we need crosswalks, we need speed tables, we need bike lanes, we need all these kinds of things. But these projects don't score well under the NVTA formula. They don't score under smart scale. The county doesn't have the money to fund the billions of dollars needed. So about 4 years ago, in committee, you asked VDOT to do a study by letter. VDOT did the study. I just got the results back about a month ago, and VDOT says that in Northern Virginia, we have a backlog of between $9 and $19 billion of unfunded bike and pedestrian infrastructure. So the original bill that I put in was to put a tax on parking spots, which is something we're considering under the WMATA funding thing. The part of the problem is nobody knows how many parking spots there are, so nobody could calculate what it would produce or what to set the tax at or whatever. And so after sort of thinking about it and talking to folks, I thought the more prudent way to deal with this is just to ask the NVTA, the Northern Virginia Transportation Authority, which is our regional sort of transportation funding thing, to sort of look at this, get the localities together to try to reach a consensus in Northern Virginia about the best way to fund these things. And the substitute you have before you basically does that. I've sent it to the NVTA. They gave me a couple comments. They're a little concerned about the time frame, being able to do it in 10 months, given some of their other priorities, but we can adjust that through time if we continue to need to. But other than that, they appreciated having them be the convener of this conversation. So that's what the bill does now. It asks for recommendations about how to pay for this for us to consider next year.
I guess you thought it the better part of valor not to do a budget amendment for $19 billion.
No, I wasn't going to.
It is, well, we have a study of the study, which I think is a wise thing to do. This is mostly in our part of the world, some things for local government and local organizations to discuss. So the substitute of the bill, the substitute for the bill is before us.
Aggie has a question.
Do we have? We have a question.
Does this bill still needs to go to finance, right?
No, it's a Section 1 bill, and it's a study by the NVTA. There's no General Assembly members or anything. Well, they requested because they had a tax on it, but no tax anymore. But
yeah, it's easy, but still has to go there.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair,
Senator
I
Bagby?
don't think anybody's here to speak against this bill, right?
No.
I was going to offer a friendly amendment.
Senator Rome?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, ask the patron, given that October 1st, if NVTA has an issue with that, if we were to knock that back to like November 1st, give them an extra month, would a patron see that as a friendly amendment?
No, I just want to have time to draft a bill. November 1's fine with me. I don't.
So would that be all right? So I'll make a motion to change October 1st, 2025 at the end of the bill to November 1st, 2025.
All right. Any comments on that from the committee? We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to change the date from October 1st to November 1st. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. The bill is amended.
Second.
I'm sorry, excuse me.
Move to report and refer.
Move to report and refer
As amended.
to, and re-refer to finance. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to report and re-refer to finance as the substitute as amended. Michael, would you please open the rolls? Ayes 14, no zero.
Thank you.
The bill reports. Thank you, Senator Serval. All right, next I think we have Senator Obenchain.
Gosh, Mr. Chairman, it's great to be back in transportation.
Yeah, there you go. We let you off the hook a couple of years ago.
Mr. Chairman, I've got a slightly different take on the issue of speed cameras that Senator Serval just addressed, and I've got Senate Bill 1209.
1209. Direct your attention to Senate Bill 1209. Senator Obenchain, the floor is yours.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, over the past few years, there's been a lot of discussion about speed cameras and their use, particularly their use in conjunction with vendors. As a matter of fact, there was a request that the Crime Commission undertake consideration of some of the issues that exist with respect to speed cameras, their utilization, and the funds that they generate. And what
Do you have a substitute?
I do. Thank you.
We have a substitute on the bill. Is substitute online? Or do you have a hard copy? It's online. Have a motion on the substitute?
Second.
Motion is, and a second to accept the substitute. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We're, okay, the bill, the substitute for the bill is before us.
Thank you,
Go
Mr.
ahead,
Chairman.
finish up.
So I live in a locality in which we don't have a lot of speed cameras. As a matter of fact, there was one speed camera that was introduced through the use of a vendor on construction project on Route 33, one of the most heavily traveled roads in the city of Harrisonburg. And what we found was that over the course of 1 year, a little over a year, there were about $4 million worth of tickets that were issued in conjunction with this one speed camera. The speed camera was placed by a vendor. Tickets were being mailed out. If you paid the ticket that was mailed out, you pay $100. If you chose to exercise your constitutional rights and go to court, you wound up having to pay $250 if you were convicted of speeding at that camera. What has happened, and this is my understanding as to what's happened in a lot of jurisdictions around Virginia, is that people found that these cameras are not subject to the same standards that police are subject to in running radar. They are calibrated, but they're calibrated once a year. They are not tested, really, but once a year. And when people go to court, they wind up having these dismissed. And as a matter of fact, in a lot of jurisdictions, they're just summarily dismissed when people go to court because they know that they're unenforceable, which raises significant questions to me about whether how fair this is to people. You wind up sending tickets that you know are unenforceable and count on people not exercising their rights and just willingly paying these tickets. And what this bill does is it says, look, if you're going to do this, particularly through vendors, the vendor has to test the machines daily, just like police test their radar. Police, of course, they have to test their radar at the beginning of the shift and at the end of the shift every day. This calls for testing radar daily for that machine, maintenance of the records for those machines, and to prevent the use of this as just a moneymaker for localities. It diverts some of the money to the Highway Transportation Safety Fund. So that's what this bill does. It hopefully brings a little bit of accountability to the use of vendors for employment of photo speed enforcement. And Mr. Chair, I do have Rockingham County Sheriff Brian Hutchison, I believe, on the line, who would like to testify to this about this bill.
All right, thank you, Senator Robertson. I have a question. Does conducting those tests on the speed camera, can that be done off-site, or can that have to be done on-site?
It can be done right there. Just run a car by it at a fixed speed and ensure that the speed that registers on the machine is the correct speed. Just make sure that they are continuing to accurately record data.
Is that how that is typically done?
It's my understanding. Sheriff can probably answer that question better than I can.
Yeah, that sounds like a somewhat imprecise.
I will defer to the sheriff.
Okay. Any other questions from the committee to Senator Obenshain? Senator Sturtevant.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a question for the patron. It's been a while since I've had a traffic case, but, and you may or may not know, and maybe this is a question for the sheriff, but how does law enforcement, when they have a reckless driving case and they're trying to prove that they have calibrated their, the police officer has calibrated their speed gun, is that an element that they have to prove in the case? Do I recall that correctly?
I think, and the last time I defended a radar-related speed case was never. So, you know, that's just not my practice. But Sheriff, better testify to that. My understanding is that the hand-operated radar has to be calibrated once, maybe once a year or once every 6 months, but then tested daily. So they tested beginning and end of their shift every day.
The resident prosecutor sitting behind you also shook her head affirmatively when I asked that question.
So, thank you. Yeah. I appreciate it.
Just a witness here.
Could we, Senator DeSteph has a request.
Mr. Chair, we've got Major Maxey back there, who is what I would consider a subject matter expert on this and probably can come up and clue us in so there's no subjective guessing.
All right.
He's delighted to be dragged into this.
Good to see you.
Mr. Chair, Ron Maxey, Virginia State Police. And I'll preface this. It's been a long time since I've been running radar, but not much has changed since then. We are required in testimony at court to calibrate before and after shift. If there is a deviation, if it does not calibrate, we're to bring that to the court's attention, have all those charges dismissed. So it's a daily thing before and after shift on that. We're required to have the tuning forks, which we calibrate the radar with. We're required to have that by Virginia law every 6 months. And the vehicle calibration also. And we calibrate the radar by the tuning forks as well as by the radar, the calibrated radar, and that's every 6 months.
Yeah. Is what Senator Obenshain is suggesting, running a car past radar at a certain speed, is that an accepted test?
Mr. Chair, it would have to be on the manufacturer recommendations for the device. There's many different manufacturers out there that would produce these devices. If you are going to calibrate to check that, it would have to be a calibrated vehicle, and that vehicle would have to be a law enforcement vehicle, which would understand the calibration process there.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions for Major Maxey? Senator, do you have a question for the patron? Okay, Senator Rome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would ask the patron, in section C here, my favorite part of this bill actually doesn't even deal with the rest of it. It says, civil penalties collected under the section resulting from a summons issued by a local law enforcement officer shall be paid to, and then we're striking locality in which such violation occurred, and we're inserting Commonwealth Transportation Board to be used for the Virginia Highway Safety Improvement Program established pursuant to 33.2-373. I've been trying to get more money into VHSIP for the last 4 years now, including a bill of mine that I have going on right now. I was wondering if the patron has any sort of estimate about what sort of revenue VHSIP could expect, over a year or 2 years from this.
Well, I can tell you that for this one I don't know, but I can tell you for one camera in the city of Harrisonburg, it's about $4 million a year.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions for Senator Obenshain? All right. Is there anyone in the audience in favor of the bill? Excuse me. Is there anyone in the audience in favor of the bill? Is there?
Can I get my sheriff?
This is where you would like to have your. Yes, for the sheriff from Rockingham County. Would you? Okay, give him his instructions.
Sheriff Hutchison, you may now speak.
Okay, can you hear me all right?
Yes, sir.
We can, and we can see you.
Great, awesome. Hey, I appreciate it. Thank you, Senator, for allowing me to say a few things, and I promise to be quick, but I wanted to start with, I think there's a little bit of a myth with photo speed enforcement as a practice as a whole, that maybe law enforcement as a whole is behind it and thinks it's a great idea. And speaking for myself and many of my colleagues, that is not the case. And there's a number of reasons why, but first and foremost, and the law says it itself in line 99, there's a presumption of guilt. And now it's a rebuttable presumption, but with the photo speed enforcement, nonetheless, there's a presumption of guilt that goes with that. And whether it's civil or traffic or criminal, nothing in our justice system, nothing in our system of laws should you have to prove yourself to be innocent. There's a presumption of guilt is my first major issue with the photo speed enforcement. You have to prove your innocence. And if I might, I'll just give you an analogy, because we got this in the mail today and you're not going to be able to see it. But what this is for a toll road. I got this in the mail today. Well, this is for a toll road in Pennsylvania, but this is proof. That's our car, our tag. And on the Pennsylvania Turnpike on December 13th at 11:19 a.m., we went through Gateway Barrier Exit Plaza 2. I owe you the money for the toll, right? That's photo enforcement of a toll, but I was there. This is proof in my mind. But now if this said my deputy was speeding on the Pennsylvania Turnpike that day, well, that doesn't constitute proof. It constitutes what? There's two key components to radar enforcement: tracking history and certification of the equipment and the operator themselves. So there's no tracking history. I won't bore you with what that is, but it's basically, the design is to prove and positively identify the vehicle and the operator of the vehicle that was speeding, not make them, as this sits now, prove the fact that they're innocent. So at least what this bill does, I think there's two good things, and I appreciate Senator Obenshain asking me about it. He and I have talked about it. At least it requires the devices to be calibrated in some way. You can see the revisions that were added at least require some sort of a daily test to be done, and then likewise some sort of an annual report to be done to show that. But there is no tracking history, and again, I just can't get away from the fact that without the certified operator and guaranteeing the certified device, that we want guilt to be established and not presumed. And that's as it is now. This is a step in the right direction. I think it's also a step in the right direction to make all fines payable to the Commonwealth Transportation Board, the Highway Safety Improvement Program. I think that's a step in the right direction. So I definitely think his bill improves the law as it sits now. By and large, something needs to be done, and this is a big step in the right direction. But clearly, there's a difference between photo speed enforcement and photo toll booth enforcement, or even photo HOV enforcement. That's fine, but there's many elements to a speed offense, visual, audio, tracking history that goes with radar enforcement by a certified operator on certified equipment that these photo devices simply are not doing. But this is a step in the right direction. I commend him for doing so.
Chief, I have a question for you. How was the speed camera in your county authorized? How did that take place, or is that a question for Senator Obenshain?
As I understand it, maybe the senator knows differently, but as I understand it, it's a work zone, so it qualifies under this code, and that the city, the locality, determined that they wanted to put it in.
And they
we have one
with the vendor.
Yeah, and the town of Bridgewater has one in a school zone there.
Okay. Senator Obenshain, is that where this is located in a?
The one I've talked about is in the construction zone across Interstate 81 on Route 33 in the city of Harrisonburg. And my understanding is the city contracted with the vendor and installed these mobile photo speed enforcement units.
Based on our recently passed laws?
Some years ago, yes, that's right.
Yeah, a few years back
That's right.
that allowed for that to take place. Does the city, or is it the city of Harrisonburg or city? Have they had any thoughts just to take it down, or?
There's been a lot of community discussion about it, and frankly, one of the reasons I brought this is, people are upset over the fact that the city is sending out these notices, or the vendor is, knowing that if anybody has the time or the inclination to go challenge it, you're going to be thrown out. And there are a lot of people who just don't have the resources, who work a job that doesn't, that they just can't afford to take the time off, who pay the $100, and that's grocery money or rent money, and it's, in my view, it is just fundamentally unfair.
And Senator Obertain, as far as you know, would this, if we pass this, the way this is currently before us, would this impact all speed cameras in construction zones in the Commonwealth?
It would have some. It would have some impact on all. They would have to test them. The heart of this bill deals with vendors. The vendor-operated, vendor-provided photo enforcement devices.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Okay, we have Senator Diggs. Senator Diggs, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Speaking to the bill.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Certainly, I think this is a good bill. It deals with those calibration issues that so many have been concerned about for a long time. Certainly, the sheriff raised about the guilt or not versus the toll. And I think with changing it to the fines going to the Commonwealth Transportation Fund, we will now find out which localities are concerned about speeding and which localities are concerned about $4 million, give or take, whether it's a revenue source or not. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Diggs. Other questions for Senator Obenchain? One observation here. This pretty big policy change, based on kind of largely, I guess, kind of undoing what people thought would be going on in other parts of the Commonwealth. If this were to have that impact on them, would you have any objection if we pass this over to the Courts Committee to take a look at this? Because some of these things are, courtroom, kinds of legal things. Would you have any objection?
I'm at let me just say a couple of things in response to that. One, I certainly am at the pleasure of the committee. If the committee wants to do that, I understand. Second, it's not my intention with this bill to undo the policy that's been adopted by the General Assembly in terms of enabling the placement of these devices. Mm-hmm. My only object here is to address the accountability and the the enforceability. Make sure that these devices that the public knows that these devices are being operated by the same standards that Sheriff Diggs or Sheriff Hutchison are required to operate their radar, that this is a reliable device as opposed to a money-making scheme.
Yeah, I get where you're going, and I was rather concerned with the idea that it was a $100 fine, and that if you tried to exercise your rights to go to court, it went up to $250. That seems fundamentally a little out of whack.
Well, and in fairness, the extra money is court costs, largely court costs is my understanding. So you do get penalized if you go to court and try and lose. And in my view, everybody has the right to go to court and try. It's a disincentive to exercising your rights, in my view.
Senator Sturdivant, you have a question?
Just following up on what you said, Mr. Chairman, I think in fact this bill is actually bringing the speed cameras in line with what already is existing Virginia policy, is that when you have a radar gun operated by a police officer, it's got to be calibrated in a certain way. And we actually have a major loophole in our code right now that doesn't require the same or similar calibration of these speed cameras. And so I think Senator Obenchain's bill actually appropriately marries up both types of speed enforcement by requiring the calibration.
I don't necessarily disagree. I guess I just have a little bit of a concern that we're doing something like this that will have such impact on other jurisdictions and decisions that they've made, and if we took this by till courts could take it up, it would give us time to see what other jurisdictions are doing and what they think of this and whether they have alternative means of wanting to do this. I would hate to have this become the law when in other jurisdictions and localities that they might want to do things a little differently. So I'm not in fundamental disagreement with the intent of the bill. I just think it would be a good idea to have the lawyers look at it for two reasons. One, they're more familiar with courtroom procedures and the whole history on checking these machines and what have you, know more about the case law on that. And secondly, would give us some time for other jurisdictions to respond. But fundamentally, I think you're onto something here, and that we need to address. Could I have a motion to re-refer this to the Committee on Courts? Report and to re-refer to. We can't. We already heard the bill. We have to. Oh, we have to do it. Okay. So report and re-refer to courts. Is that the proper motion, Michael? What's that? So we have a motion and a second to report and re-refer the bill to courts. Could you open the roll?
With the substitute.
With the substitute, excuse me. Okay.
13, no, 0, abstentions 1.
Ayes 13, no 0, abstentions 1. Mean no harm to the bill, Senator Obenshain. I think it's a good policy. I'd just like to slow it down a little bit and have us take a little more in-depth look.
Well, since we're talking about speed cameras, slowing it down makes some sense. So.
Yes, yes,
Gotcha.
it does. Thank you for the work on this. You bring up some very, very good points.
That would be correct. All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. I draw your attention, along with the committee members, to Senate Bill 1233, which is a stop sign monitoring system. This bill is a pedestrian crossing violation monitoring system to stop sign violation monitoring system for enforcement. It authorizes the state and local enforcement agencies to place and operate pedestrian crossing violations and stop sign violation monitoring systems in school crossing zones, highway work zones, and high-risk intersection segments for the purposes of recording pedestrian crossing and stop sign violations, as those terms are defined in the bill. The bill imposes the same requirements on pedestrian crossing and stop sign violation monitoring systems as currently exist in photo speed monitoring devices, and requires local law enforcement agencies implementing or expanding the use of such systems to, prior to the implementation or expanding those systems, conduct a public awareness program for such implementation or expansion. What we know, Mr. Chair and members of the committee, is that traffic safety is becoming a bigger issue nationwide and especially in the Commonwealth. With over 80,000 crashes in the first 3 quarters of 2024, the roadways are feeling more unsafe than ever. Sometimes they feel like a racetrack. The statistics are very clear. 10% of all crashes are at stop sign intersections. 36% of all stop sign crashes lead to serious or fatal injury, and 97% of pedestrian crashes at crosswalks lead to serious or fatal injury. These safety concerns are amplified where we have our most vulnerable in our community, school zones and highway work zones. This bill would allow for additional safety measures in the areas where the General Assembly has already agreed that enhanced safety measures are desirable. The bill adds to the existing framework the option for local law enforcement to utilize utilize stop sign violation monitoring systems and pedestrian crossing violation monitoring devices as a tool in enhancing pedestrian and vehicle safety in the Commonwealth. After deployment of a similar framework in Maryland, stop sign violations were reduced over 75% because the monitoring deters the bad behavior. Also importantly, a sworn law enforcement officer would be required to review and approve any civil penalty issued as the result of the alleged violation. In addition, information collected by such monitoring devices would only be used for the purpose of violation. The goal is not to hide the ball and issue tickets. It is to deter bad behavior. This is a public safety issue. There are signage and public awareness campaigns required in the bill so that the community is aware of the technology, where it is, and what such in an effort to deter bad behavior. I know there are a lot of local government, law enforcement, and other advocacy organizations in support of the legislation, and I hope it will be the pleasure of the committee to report the bill.
Thank you, Senator Williams-Graves. Questions from the committee? Senator Suderline.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate hearing that it's not the goal to collect money, but it will collect money. And I anticipate that the vendor that operates, it's a for-profit company.
That would more than likely be true, Mr.
So
Chair.
it would be their intent then to collect money?
Mr. Chair, Senator Suderline, are you asking if the vendor should be paid for his service or if the violation is
I was asked, sorry.
Senator Suderline.
Mr. Chair, I was just asking because if the goal was not to collect money, I was curious if this was going to be something that the Commonwealth just did or if this bill was encouraged by a vendor that's a for-profit company that, of course, would be seeking to generate money off of this.
Mr. Chair, Senator Suderline, I would answer that question by saying anyone that enters into a business contract to provide a service with the Commonwealth of Virginia expects to get paid for the service that they provide. If they are providing an apparatus or a service, they do expect to get paid. Running a stop sign is already a violation. And if a police officer saw that in the commission, in his line of duty while he was on duty, he would stop the driver, he would issue a citation, and it would come with a fine. So I'm not really sure where, I'm not sure where the question is going,
Mr. Chairman?
Senator Suderline.
Yeah, I was just excited to hear that it wasn't about collecting money. And so I thought that perhaps this was going to be something that the state was just going to do, like we do a lot of things, without the intention of being a for-profit enterprise. But and I also thought this bill was probably encouraged by a private vendor that, of course, is a for-profit enterprise, and so it's pursuing this legislation with a profit motive, which is not their fault, but it's a little different than what I was hearing.
One never knows. This is America.
Mr. Chair, Senator Suderline, I would just simply say that just because a business enters into a contract to provide a service to be paid by the Commonwealth doesn't make it a bad idea.
All right. Senator Diggs, you have a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Several questions for the patron.
Please proceed.
So I think you're trying to do some good things for safety, but I have some questions. Are we targeting jaywalkers? Are they the ones who we're going to fine, or are we looking for cars that cross when someone's in the crosswalk? I truly don't understand how this works, and that's my first question. You can answer that now instead of, if you don't mind, if the chairman, because I've got several questions there.
All right.
Mr. Chair, I do have expert witness here that could probably be more suited at answering that question. I can give Senator a general answer, but I do, if he wants to dig into details, we can bring it.
All right, we can do that. One thing I would say, Senator Diggs, if I'm thinking it through clearly, if one is crossing at a stop sign, it is at the pedestrian's judgment that he has the capacity and what have you to do that. It's not like crossing against a light or in the middle of the street. This would be only crossing where there is a stop sign. Is that
That is correct.
And is that generally true?
I don't know, because I was thinking more of a city situation with crosswalks as opposed to a suburban rural where there's just a stop sign with some pedestrian traffic. So that I'm unclear on that. So if I can ask them the second question.
Before Senator, Mr. Chair, ask the second question, I would
Senator
also.
Williams-Graves.
It is my understanding also that pedestrians have the right of way. So if the pedestrian were crossing the street at a stop sign, it is their presumption
Okay.
that they're not going to be run over by a vehicle that doesn't stop in the first place.
Gotcha. Your second question, Senator Diggs.
Well, it is about stop signs, and it's part of this is stop sign violations. To me, and I think differently than some people, a stop sign is a traffic control device to control traffic when traffic is present. So you're at a stop sign and there's no cars for miles. Personally, I don't see the real harm of well, some people call it a California roll, or, not a complete stop or something like that. Are we going to be enforcing those kinds of stop sign violations when there's no cars in sight? Or it's just a question. I don't know, because I'm very lenient on at least that kind of a roll and stop as such when nobody's for any kind of foreseeable distance. Again, kind of a rhetorical question, I suppose.
Senator Williams-Graves.
Mr. Chair, I appreciate the senator's transparency in his breaking the law, but it's my understanding that a stop sign means stop. And so if a police officer saw him rolling through a stop sign, he would have, at his discretion, the opportunity to give him a ticket for breaking the law.
So would you say, Senator Williams-Graves, that that's going to be a local decision made by law enforcement as to how tightly they would enforce that stop sign?
Yes, Mr.
Okay,
Chair.
thank you. Senator Rome, you have a question? I'm sorry, Senator Diggs, did you have another? Okay,
No,
Senator
just
Rome, please.
Speaking to the bill, Mr. Chairman. So, Mr. Chair, I guess a few years back, I was over in Gainesville in the Glenkirk community because I had a number of complaints that came from constituents over there about people who were running the stop sign. So I parked my car and I just kind of looked out the back window, and I actually recorded this. And I think I counted, I could be wrong off the top of my head, but it was like 30 some odd cars that had gone through. I think I counted one that had stopped at this three-way stop sign, like the whole way through. It was just presumed that Sheriff Diggs was in charge the whole time in this residential neighborhood in Prince William County. So, I understand if you're in a rural area, whatever, and you're having one car every hour. I get where the senator's coming from. On the other hand, though, this is in a very suburban part where it's just all houses all around, and I watch that behavior happen too. I actually do share the senator from Roanoke's concern about what happens whenever we get for-profit companies involved with pretty much a lot of city contract stuff in the first place. But when I'm looking at what the most significant issue is that we're dealing with here, which is keeping people from getting killed. In my district, we have pedestrian deaths so often, especially on Sudley Road. And it is really, really heartbreaking when you hold a town hall in your community and you have 20, 30 some odd people show up, all talking about how this one person was just walking across the road before they got hit by a car. in a pedestrian area that they were walking across the road, and then they ask you, what can you do? What are you going to do? What can you do? And you throw a whole bunch of ideas on the board, but nothing brings back that person who got killed. I think if we're going to default to something, it should be to people not getting killed.
Thank you, Senator Rum. Any other questions from the committee? Is there anyone here to speak in favor of the bill?
Brian Pennington, representing City of Norfolk. We support the bill.
I'm sorry, who are you with?
Brian Pennington, City of Norfolk. We support the bill.
City of Norfolk.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Committee, Brantley Tyndall, Virginia Bicycling Federation. I just want to echo the safety benefits of this bill. Pedestrian and bicycling fatalities, when combined, are a major portion of our annual fatalities in Virginia, and vulnerable road users really should be at the height of or at the forefront of what we're trying to solve here. So thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Sarah Graham Taylor on behalf of the City of Alexandria. City supports this bill. This is technology that we believe would be appropriate for our community, and believe that this permissive authority in a walkable, dense neighborhood, bikeable, lots of pedestrians, and where pedestrian safety is a priority for the city, that we believe this technology would be right for our community, and why we believe that this permissive authority in school zones and work zones would be appropriate for us, and appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McKenzie.
Mr. Chairman, Brent McKenzie with the City of Virginia Beach. We support this legislation as well. We do believe that this technology helps free up our police to go out and do maybe not more important police work, but additional impactful police work, and that this technology works well and that it will help keep people safe. So we appreciate your thoughts this afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. We'd like to thank the patron for introducing this piece of legislation. Ed Reed on behalf of the City of Hampton. We also support the bill for a lot of the reasons that you've already heard and have been articulated. We've seen an uptick in the City of Hampton in stop sign related infractions and accidents over the last 4 or 5 years. And this would be another tool to address public safety. We've also heard from members of the community and a lot of these neighborhoods that actually want this type of technology to address public safety. So thank you for your time.
So Ed, would you say that what the goal of this bill is not to collect money, but to change behavior of drivers, knowing that they need to respect the law?
Mr. Chair, what I would say is the rationale from the City Council and their legislative priority was to address public safety.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Anyone in the audience in opposition to the bill? Anyone online in favor or opposed to the bill? Any further questions?
Mr. Chairman, I have one.
Senator DeStaff.
And Mr. Chairman, if I may, Senator Graves, you may want to phone a friend on this one. What is the cost for one of these violations, both in a work zone, in a school zone, or in a trying to go to the right term, high-risk intersection segment? I've heard a dozen times us say it's not about the money, it's about trying to change behavior, get people not to run folks over. So what is the fine?
Let me see if my friend is phoning me. I don't have an answer for that question.
I believe we have some subject matter experts here that may be able to assist. So.
Okay.
Senator DeStaff, I missed the start of your question. I was out of the room.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Please.
Mr. Chair, Senator Williams-Grave, Edward Mullen, my question is, so we're saying that the focus of this is not really on the fines, it's on pedestrian crossing in a school zone, pedestrian crossing in a work zone, and high-risk intersection segments. So in each of those situations, what is the fine? And then while we do have our subject matter expert, is there always a fine or a violation when pedestrians are present or aren't present? Are we only doing this while a pedestrian is present and they in or trying to cross? And then one other point of clarification. Earlier we said, by law, we thought pedestrians always have the right of way. Actually, in Virginia Beach, there are certain areas that pedestrians do have the right of way, and others in a crosswalk where they do not have the right of way. So local ordinance sets up and dictates that. But back to my basic
Yeah,
question, sir.
Edward Mullen with Seven Hills Strategy Group on behalf of, which is a company that has done this sort of work in Maryland. On the fine, it is, everything in here mirrors the speed camera statute in every respect. So location, setup, data retention. I think it's a $100 civil fine. A stop sign violation, my understanding is a violation of a stop sign penalty is irrespective of pedestrian presence. Pedestrian crossway, pedestrian presence is relevant. This type of technology can detect whether there is a pedestrian present in the crosswalk or not. And in every case, of course, there's a human person reviewing it and saying, yes, I think this is a violation, or no, I do not.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mullen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And one additional question.
Senator DeSteph.
And if I may, Mr. Mullen, on the traffic speed cameras or the traffic light cameras, you have to have a sworn law enforcement individual reviewing that. In this case, is it still a sworn law enforcement officer?
It is the, Mr. Chairman, Senator DeSteph, yes, it is the exact same requirements as the speed camera legislation.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right. If we, Senator Srinivasan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a quick question for the patron. Do we know, I know we don't have this type of technology in Virginia. Do we know how many installations have been there? I'm just curious.
How many installations?
How many installations have been there in Maryland or any other state? I'm just curious.
Ed, do we know, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, do we know
thank
how many installations we have in Maryland? That was the example I used.
Yeah, I believe there's 20 or 30 in Maryland.
Okay.
And again, Mr. Chairman, Senator Srinivasan, in Maryland, it's locality by locality, and there's several localities that are going for this session. Here, this is limited to school zones, work zones.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Senator Rome has done some research here, and actually the fine can be up to $250 in Virginia for running a stop sign if a police officer were to do that, and I assume that doesn't change.
It would be exactly, Mr. Chair, as a red light camera violation or whatever is currently on the statute for violating a stop sign, for a stop sign violation. Is that accurate?
I believe Mr. Mullen has some additional.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I think how this is, and I defer to counsel, I think how this is set up, Mr. Chairman and Senator Rome, is this is in the speed camera statute, so the penalty for a camera violation is limited to the $100 in this statute. If it were perhaps a sworn officer out on the street, maybe it can be up to $250, but under this statute, it would be limited to $100 for the automated enforcement.
Okay, counsel is nodding, so we're in good shape there. This is going to be a $100 fine. Any further questions? If not, we're ready for a motion?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Final word, please.
Certainly.
Final word, please.
Yes.
Thank
please.
you. I just would like to note that people's behavior is not improving. And this is a public safety matter. Pedestrians are distracted, cars are being built with computers, and pedestrians and drivers are increasingly distracted. This bill seeks to improve public safety and save lives by protecting drivers and pedestrians from themselves. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Senator Williams-Graves. Have a motion, please? I don't believe we had an amendment.
No
Nope.
amendment.
Just have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to report Senate Bill 1233. Could you open the roll, please?
Ayes 9, noes 5.
Ayes 9, noes 5. The bill reports.
Thank you,
Senator
Mr. Chair,
Williams-Graves.
members of the committee.
Next, we have Senator Perry, senior senator from Loudoun.
Good afternoon, members of the committee and Mr. Chairman. The bill you have before you right now is Senate Bill 887. Long commutes and traffic is a huge problem in Northern Virginia, as I know many of you are aware. As the region has developed and the population has grown, the congestion and traffic has grown tenfold. An hour-long commute is typical for many of the constituents in Northern Virginia, and especially for folks out in Loudoun and Fauquier County, the folks that I represent. The Greenway is a 14-mile toll road that connects Dulles Airport to Leesburg and was envisioned originally as a solution to the traffic and congestion problems. But the tolls are very expensive, costing users approximately $5.60 to travel a relatively short distance. Recently, I talked to a constituent who said they never take the Greenway because it is so expensive, and they found an alternate route that takes the same length of time as the Greenway, but it's free. The Greenway has been around since 1995, but is still trying to raise the rates of the users, largely because of the mismanagement of the company who owns the Greenway and the passing on and shell games and the passing on of debt that is compounded over time to the people who use the Greenway. This past September, the State Corporation Commission denied the toll operator's request to increase tolls for most cars. Their request, the Greenway's request, was to increase tolls to $8.10 during peak hours and $6.40 during off-peak hours. The SCC denied the request thanks to legislation this body passed a couple of years ago. This bill is trying to stop the toll operators from passing their debt off to users. Users should not be responsible for the financial mismanagement of a private corporation. Recently, the toll operators have filed an appeal of this case to the Supreme Court of Virginia on January 2nd, and it will likely not be heard until June, possibly even September or October. Rest assured, while that appeal is pending, though, this problem is not going away. With the ongoing litigation, however, I believe it's best to let the process play out as we typically do here in the General Assembly, and to table the bill with the expectation that I will be back next year once litigation has concluded. So I would ask the committee to gently pass this by while we wait for a decision from the Supreme Court.
Excuse me. We can't pass the bill to next year because we're in the
Gently
short
lay it on the
session.
table. Yes, Mr. Chairman, that's right.
We don't have a.
Well, I would move that it be stricken.
Okay.
I realize since we can't. Last year we could, this year we
Yeah,
can't.
thank you, Senator Perry. Could we have a motion to strike Senate Bill 887? We have a second. Could you open the roll, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Perry.
No zero.
Ayes 14, no zero. The bill is stricken from the docket. Senator McPike, you are up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have Senate Bill 1317 before the committee.
Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this Senate Bill comes from the Potomac-Rappahannock Transportation Commission. This legislation expands the PRTC commuter bus service and it amends the code and limits the operational area for Omni ride services. And so the language allows the service expansions for PRTC passed in the biennial budget. And so since it's in the budget, obviously those provisions will expire at the end of the two-year budget. So this codifies that expansion and allows, as the area grows down the I-66 and Route 29 corridors, allows that commuter service to extend to adjoining counties and help support those populations as well. And Mr. Chairman, that is the bill.
All right. Any questions for Senator McPike?
The PRTC Executive Director here.
Yeah. Any questions for Senator McPike on Senate Bill 1317? All right. Is there anyone you'd like to call as a witness, Senator McPike, in favor of the bill? Thank you.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, I am Bob Schneider, the Executive Director of PRTC OmniRide. We thank Senator McPike for bringing this legislation for us. SB 1317 will allow us to continue our very popular commuter service to areas like Warrenton, Front Royal, and continue to fight car congestion along the I-66 and heavily congested US 29 corridors and the growing areas of Northern Virginia. Happy to answer any questions if you have, but we hope you support this legislation.
Thank you so much. Any questions for this witness? I think this is, an effort really to create a more regional approach to transportation solutions, and I commend you for that. The locality model sometimes doesn't always accomplish the task. Anyone else in favor of the bill? Is there anyone here in opposition? Hold on. Anyone online? All right. We have a motion. We have a motion to report. Do we have a second? We have a second. We have a motion and a second to report the bill. Could you open the roll, please? Okay, you got the helm.
I got you.
Ayes 14, no zero.
Ayes 14, no zero. The bill reports. Our final bill is
Thank you, Mr.
mine.
Chairman.
And I would like to. Oh, do you? I'm sorry.
Please, no, after you, Dave.
No. Go ahead. Let's do yours first.
No, I was going to say, let's do yours first.
Okay, we'll do that. And Senator Rome will take over.
All right, the next bill is going to be SB 1340 from our dear Mr. Chair. And, Mr. Chairman, are there any amendments or substitutes?
No, sir. There are not.
No,
ma'am, there are not. Excuse me. All right. Senate Bill 1317. This is a cleanup bill for VDOT to deal with the issue of a redundant report, and also to deal with we eliminated in 2022 something we did in 2012. It's no longer relevant, and I would ask representative here, Joanne Maxwell from VDOT.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, the senator is accurate. This is just merely a cleanup bill, in essence, to eliminate a report that is a redundant reporting requirement in the law. We report on the Innovation and Technology Transportation Fund in two places. One is a standalone report. Another is a report that's part of another report. All we are asking is that the report that is sort of a subset of another report be stricken from the law, so that all we're doing is annually reporting on the one report. The second part of this bill is based on legislation that was enacted in 2012. There were a couple of enactment clauses that were tied to a subsection that was enacted into law. That subsection was subsequently repealed in 2022. And unfortunately, the enactment clauses that were associated with that subsection were never repealed. And so for the last 2 or 3 years, we've basically been having to do a report that is in essence obsolete. There is no information available because the underlying subsection of the code is now gone. So that's the bill in a nutshell.
All right, questions from the committee? All those in favor of the bill, if you'd like to please speak, please take the microphone. Is there anyone online? All those opposed? All right, there's been a motion made and properly seconded to report SB 1340. The clerk will please open the roll.
Senator. Ayes 14, no zero.
Ayes 14, no zero. The bill passes, and we are now left with our final bill of the day, which is SB 1467 from Senator DeSteff.
Madam Chair, just keep the helm.
Okay.
Apologies, we just kept saying chairman. It's stupid.
Yeah. You want to switch now?
No.
Mr. Chair, member of this committee, thank you very much for your time today. We're going to talk a little bit about Senate Bill 1467, which is dealing with the Commonwealth Aviation Fund. The Commonwealth Aviation Fund has a split, basically 40% to large airports, 40% to medium-sized airports, and 20% to smaller airports. The problem is that the larger airports really need a little bit more, and the small airports don't need as much. And a lot of the small airports aren't getting, they're not using the money. So there's a pot of money that's not being used. So what we're looking at doing is two things. One, changing to a 50-40-10. Actually, I have a substitute.
Will council please report
If
substitute?
we could, please move the substitute. I apologize. I should have done that up front. It's the first thing on my bullet, and I dropped the ball on
All
it.
right, I'll take a motion to adopt substitute.
Second?
All right, motion made, probably seconded to adopt substitute. All those in favor, please indicate your vote by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, substitute is now before us. Is the substitute online? All right, according to council, the substitute is online.
And I apologize about that. I should have done that first.
Senator, would you please explain the difference between the substitute and the original bill?
The difference between the substitute and the original bill, there's two or three little cleanup things, nothing really, just truly technical, but it changes the time of this and sunsets it in 3 years instead of making it permanent, I believe. And that was an agreement with all parties to make peace in the valley, with one organization that was a little upset about having it permanent. So everybody's happy with it now, and with that, we'd like to move forward. And an example of how this would affect our commercial airports in my district, in Richmond, Norfolk International, Richmond International would receive a little bit more, Dulles, some of the larger airports. But when it comes down to the smaller airports that do not currently use the funding, those funds would be reallocated to the larger and mid-size airports.
Question I'll have for
Sure.
you here. So in my district, I've got Manassas Regional Airport. And so Manassas Regional is going to start having commercial service soon, which is going to be a little bit different than what it was before. And actually, for members who've been here for a while, the late Senator Colgan, that was where Colgan Air was coming out of. How would this affect kind of in between the airport that size, where it's certainly not the smallest in the area, but and I see one of our Dulles reps who's here. It's certainly not the size of Dulles by any stretch of the imagination, but it's certainly complementary to it.
I may have to phone a friend on that. Let me see if Greg Campbell's here. Greg, please help me on this one, because I don't know this one. If it was Shenandoah,
Sure.
I could have answered it.
Sure.
If it was any other ones in the area, I probably could have helped, but.
Sure. Chair and members of the committee, just a couple of things about that. First, I'll answer your question. The airports like Manassas would not be adversely impacted. This is just a reclassification that reflects more modern airport classifications. It's based on the system plan that came forward. We looked at 20-year needs for all the airports. It's interesting you should bring up Manassas, though, because we really spent some time on this one, because Manassas is going to move from a general aviation airport to a commercial service airport, and that's baked into this proposal so that when that happens, that there's no adverse impact to any of the airport categories. This doesn't really take it will not affect Manassas. And just a couple other points on this. It restores the original intent of the CAF, the Commonwealth Aviation Fund, because of some amendments and changes over time. The program is imbalanced now, and as the senator said, there's funding and there are needs, and they're not being met. It indexes the maximum and minimum levels, both brings up the minimum for the small airports and increases the top number. Those have not been indexed since the mid-1980s, since the program was created. Also, it corrects those imbalances that I mentioned previously, provides actually more funding to the growing general aviation airports like Manassas, protects the smallest, most vulnerable by fencing them in with their own funding program. And at the end of the day, too, even though the percentages are changing, it retains an important feature to the Commonwealth Aviation Fund, which is after January 1, the wall between all the discretionary comes down, and all airports have access to all the funding so that we make sure it gets fully utilized. Again, this is based on evaluation of long-term needs and performance of the fund, input from stakeholders of all sizes. A couple of the airports are here today, I believe, and may have interest in this. So I hope that answers your question.
So I guess the follow-up I would have for you then is, just bluntly speaking, are there winners and losers in this?
A lot of winners. I'm not sure about any losers.
I don't believe there are.
Okay.
And again, this, and I don't want to speak for the gentleman, but the president of the Airports Association is here. It's endorsed by them. We've discussed this with them and vetted it with them, and they're totally in support. It's just it improves the efficiency of how the money is to be distributed by the Aviation Board.
Okay, questions from the committee? Okay, all those in favor of the bill, please come on up.
While they're coming up, Chair, I wanted to point out that this original funding formula was put together almost 50 years ago. So 40-something years ago, and it's time to update.
Absolutely. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I'm Nick Sabo. I'm the current president of the Virginia Airport Operators Council. We're a 501c6 nonprofit that represents the 65 public use airports here in Virginia. We offer our full-throated support for this bill. As Director Campbell indicated, it actually improves reliability and predictability of the fund and allowing all airports of all categories, all sizes, to better plan capital improvements. And the feature that Director Campbell mentioned as far as the funding wall dropping after the first 6 months of the fiscal year enables all funds to be used as efficiently as possible. So we look forward to this and actually could minimize costly project delays if funding is not available in that first 6 months of the fiscal year.
Good to see you, sir.
Good to see you, sir. Madam Chair, members of the committee, Senator Steph, thank you for the opportunity to speak today. Michael Cooper from Dulles and Reagan National Airport. We're kind of a giver to the Commonwealth Aviation Fund and to the funding of airports in general. It's very important that all the airports can benefit from the fund as it grows. And this essentially takes care of an imbalance that was occurring between funding that was becoming available, needs that were there, money that was on the table, and there's certain structural things within the existing code prevented that funding from getting out the door more quickly. This is a good bill. Thank you. Thank you, Senator.
All right, anyone opposed? Online?
I've not heard any opposition during this whole process, and we've put it out there a few times. So we've even put it out at the Aviation Caucus. I've heard zero, and I've even pushed it out into the communities to make sure that nobody had an issue with it.
All right, well, we can take that up with delegates Delaney and Austin then.
I've talked to both of them on it, and they're both good with it. As you know, Delegate Austin, this is his business, and he was super happy with this.
Cool. All right, committee operates by motion. All right, so the motion is going to be made to report, and it has to be referred over to finance, so with a substitute. All right, it's been moved. It's been seconded. Clerk will please open the roll.
You vote me, I'll vote you.
Well, that's good.
Chair, committee, thank you very much for your time, and I'm glad this is the last bill for today.
Congratulations. And let's have the chair is also going to be recorded as an aye.
Oh, have we voted, everybody?
Somebody have Hackworth?
We're gonna keep this open so that we can have the chairman be recorded as an aye.
Perfect.
Oh, you had Pricey over there.
Oh.
That's okay. Thank you for handling. All right, clerk will close the roll. Ayes 12, no 0. All right, bill reports and is re-referred with substitute, and with that, the committee will rise.
I'm an idiot.
Oh, I appreciate the apology.
The Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia.